Working for the Department of Homeland Security's Intelligence Division taught me one brutal lesson early: your family will never understand the word classified. To them, it's just an excuse, a fancy word you hide behind when your job sounds boring. Something you say to avoid explaining what you actually do all day. My name is Hannah Brooks. I'm 32 years old, and I've spent the last 7 years as a senior intelligence analyst for DHS. My clearance level is TS/SCI, with special access to counterterrorism intelligence. I analyze threat streams, track financial movements, cross-reference communications, and help stop attacks before they ever reach the news. But to my family, I'm just Hannah. The quiet one. The one with a government desk job. My older sister Rachel is a trauma surgeon. My younger brother Evan owns a fast-growing digital marketing firm. Their careers are impressive in obvious ways. Easy to explain at dinner parties. Easy for my parents to brag about. Mine? Not so much. For years, I'd answered every question the same way: I can't talk about it. Eventually, my family decided that meant there was nothing worth talking about. The trouble started 3 months ago, during my mother's birthday weekend. I was visiting my parents' home in suburban Maryland, hoping for a short break from work. No alerts. No encrypted calls. Just cake and forced smiles. Then my phone rang. A credible threat had surfaced. Time-sensitive. Urgent. I retreated to my childhood bedroom, now converted into a temporary secure workspace. Encrypted laptop. Isolated network. Reinforced door lock. It wasn't perfect, but it met remote work protocol standards. The intelligence packet was 47 pages long. Surveillance images. Intercepted messages. Financial trails. Everything pointed to a coordinated attack on public transportation infrastructure. Lives depended on speed. For hours, I worked without stopping, mapping timelines, identifying patterns, flagging risks. I barely noticed the knock on my door, or my mother's voice telling me dinner was ready. To them, I was choosing work over family. In reality, I was choosing strangers over funerals. And that difference would soon tear my family apart forever. By the time I transmitted my assessment through secure channels, it was already evening. The threat analysis was complete, forwarded, and logged. I joined my parents late for dinner, mentally exhausted but relieved. Rachel had been called into the hospital. Evan was enthusiastically showing off a new ad campaign on his tablet. My father teased me for disappearing all day. Your brother hasn't checked his email once, he joked. You could learn something about work-life balance. I smiled and let it go. Explaining was pointless. The next morning, I went for a short run. I left my secure laptop locked in my room, the door reinforced and shut. Standard protocol. What I failed to do, my single mistake, was lock the printed intelligence packet inside my briefcase. When I returned, my bedroom door was open. My stomach dropped. Downstairs, my parents and Evan were sitting around the coffee table. Spread out in front of them were 47 pages of classified intelligence. They were reading them. My mother smiled when she saw me. We were just curious, she said lightly. We wanted to understand what you do. Evan was holding surveillance photos. My father was reading a threat memo clearly stamped top secret. I felt cold. These documents are classified, I said. You've committed a federal crime. They laughed. All of them. Evan even pulled out his phone and snapped a photo. That was when I pressed the panic button. Within minutes, black SUVs filled the driveway. Armed federal agents breached the front door. My family was forced face down onto the carpet. I stood there, heart pounding, as my private life officially became a crime scene. And there was no way back. The agents moved fast. Phones were seized. Documents bagged. Every room photographed. My family was cuffed and read their rights. My mother cried hysterically, begging me to stop it. My father stared at me like I'd betrayed him. Evan kept saying he was sorry, that he didn't know. But they did know. They had been warned. Repeatedly. The lead agent pulled me aside. They will be charged, he said quietly. You understand that? I nodded. I understand. Rachel arrived an hour later, furious and confused. She couldn't believe I'd let this happen. They are our parents, she said. You chose paperwork over family. No, I replied. They chose curiosity over national security. The investigation lasted weeks. Prosecutors didn't hesitate. My parents pleaded guilty to misdemeanor unauthorized access. Heavy fines. Probation. Mandatory security training. Evan faced felony charges for photographing classified documents. He took a plea deal, 18 months in federal prison. The family I knew collapsed. Rachel cut me off completely. Extended relatives blamed me. Holidays disappeared. Group chats went silent. And yet, the law was clear. Classified intelligence doesn't bend for bloodlines. Professionally, I survived. Personally, I lost everything. 3 weeks after the incident, the internal investigation concluded. I sat across from senior security officers as they reviewed every step I'd taken, from the moment I discovered the breach to the second I pressed the panic button. When they were finished, the verdict was clear. My response had been by the book. In fact, they called it exemplary. I kept my clearance. I kept my position. I was cleared of all fault except one procedural lapse, failing to secure the printed documents before leaving the room. That mistake was documented, reprimanded, and closed. My family's cases were not. My parents were released on bond first. Seeing them walk out of the courthouse, older, quieter, humiliated, felt like being punched in the chest. They didn't look at me. Not once. The fines alone were devastating. Retirement plans vanished overnight. Their reputation in the community evaporated. Evan's case was worse. The moment prosecutors proved he had photographed classified documents, the outcome was sealed. His lawyer explained it bluntly, intent didn't matter. Damage potential did. Evan pleaded guilty to a felony count to avoid a longer sentence. 18 months in federal prison. His business collapsed within weeks. Clients disappeared. Employees quit. His wife filed for divorce before he was even transferred to a correctional facility. Rachel blamed me for all of it. She refused my calls. Blocked my number. When she finally sent an email, it was only one sentence. I hope your job was worth destroying our family. Extended relatives chose sides. Most chose against me. Invitations stopped coming. Holidays passed without my name being mentioned. I became the unspoken rule, don't bring her up. At work, I was trusted more than ever. At home, I sat alone in silence. I ate dinner by myself. Celebrated birthdays alone. Promotions came without congratulations. Achievements without witnesses. Success without joy. Late at night, I asked myself the same question everyone else did. Could I have handled it differently? The answer never changed. If I hadn't reported the breach, I would have committed a felony myself. I would have lost my clearance, my career, and possibly my freedom. Worse, if that intelligence had leaked further, people could have died. My family wanted protection. The law demanded accountability. And when those two collide, intelligence work doesn't allow hesitation. That was the price. And it was already paid. Operation Iron Crossing never made the news. There were no headlines, no press conferences, no politicians congratulating themselves on camera. That was the point. Intelligence work succeeds in silence. When we do our jobs right, nothing happens, and no one ever knows how close disaster came. 3 months after the breach at my parents' house, Iron Crossing concluded. 49 arrests across 3 states. Weapons seized. Financial pipelines cut. A coordinated attack on multiple transit systems quietly dismantled before the final phase was even reached. Hundreds of lives were saved. Possibly thousands. No one outside a secured room would ever hear that. The briefing took place in a windowless conference room inside a federal facility. Senior officials listened as I walked them through timelines, decision points, and vulnerabilities we had exploited. When it ended, there was no applause, just nods, quiet acknowledgements, and one sentence that mattered. Good work. That was all. 2 weeks later, my supervisor informed me I was being promoted. Lead intelligence analyst. Expanded authority. Higher clearance access. A 22% pay increase. It should have been the happiest moment of my career. Instead, I went home to an empty apartment. There was no one to call. No family group chat. No celebratory dinner. Rachel didn't text. My parents didn't acknowledge it. Evan was already in federal custody. I poured a glass of water and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the wall while the reality settled in. I had succeeded completely. And I had no one left to share it with. A few days later, I received a letter from Evan's prison facility. All correspondence was monitored, every word filtered through layers of bureaucracy. His handwriting was uneven, like his hands had forgotten how to hold a pen. He was angry. Hurt. Confused. But he also understood. They had forced him to attend security briefings, classes explaining what classified information was, why photographs mattered, how a single image could get people killed. He wrote that sitting in those rooms, hearing real case studies, had finally made everything real. I get it now, he wrote. I wish I had listened. That letter broke something open inside me. I wrote back carefully. I apologized. I told him I wished things had gone differently. I didn't say that I would make the same choice again. But the truth was, I would. Success came with medals, promotions, and quiet respect inside locked rooms. Failure came with funerals. And I knew which outcome I could live with. Evan's release day arrived on a cold, grey morning that matched the mood of everyone involved. The federal facility sat on the edge of town, surrounded by fences, cameras, and silence. I arrived early, standing near my car with my hands in my coat pockets, unsure whether I was welcome or merely tolerated. When Evan finally walked out, he looked older than I remembered. Thinner. Slower. Prison had carved years into his face in less than 2. Still, when he saw me, something softened. He hesitated, then stepped forward and hugged me. Thank you for coming, he said quietly. It was the first time in years I felt like I still had a brother. We talked in careful, neutral sentences. He told me about mandatory counseling, job restrictions, and the difficulty of rebuilding a life with a felony record. I listened, offering nothing but honesty. I couldn't fix what had happened, but I could be present. My parents stood across the parking lot, separate from us. They looked smaller somehow. Tired. My mother's eyes were red, my father's posture rigid and defensive. They didn't approach at first. Eventually, my mother walked over alone. Was it worth it, she asked, her voice tight. Destroying our family over your job. I thought about the trains that never exploded. The people who got home safely. The families who never knew they had been spared tragedy. Yes, I said quietly. It was. She nodded once, as if confirming something she already knew but hated. Then she walked away without another word. My father passed by next. He stopped just long enough to look at me. I don't understand you anymore, he said. I don't know if I ever did. I know, I replied. And I'm sorry for that. But I'm not sorry for doing my job. He didn't answer. He just left. Rachel was the last to go. She lingered near her car, arms crossed, eyes hard. Do you ever regret it? She asked. Every day, I admitted. But I'd still make the same choice. Her expression changed, not anger, but distance. Then you're not the sister I grew up with. No, I agreed. I'm someone who keeps her oath. She drove away, leaving me alone in the parking lot, watching my family scatter in different directions. They finally understood. It just came too late to change anything. Some endings don't bring closure. They bring silence. After Evan's release, my family drifted into separate lives, connected only by shared history and unresolved pain. There were no holidays together, no group messages, no casual check-ins. Time didn't heal us, it simply made the distance permanent. 2 years after the breach, I was called into a secure conference room for a private ceremony. No cameras. No speeches. Just a handful of senior officials and a sealed citation. I received the intelligence community's Exceptional Service Medal for my work on Operation Iron Crossing and subsequent high-risk operations. The citation was classified. I couldn't tell anyone why I received it. The medal now sits in a biometric locked case in my apartment, another achievement that exists only in silence. Like everything else in my life, it's something I can't share, can't explain, and can't use to help people understand who I am, or what I've sacrificed. My career continued to rise. I briefed senior leadership. Coordinated with international partners. Worked cases that would never reach public awareness. Threats stopped before they could form headlines. My personal life remained empty. My mother sent one final letter after completing her court-mandated security training. She wrote about confusion and pain, about how she only wanted to understand my work, how a mother deserved to know what her daughter did every day. She still didn't understand. My father never reached out again. Rachel sent one message months later, I hope you're happy. I wasn't happy. But I was certain. The oath I took didn't come with exceptions. It didn't include clauses for family comfort or emotional consequences. It demanded integrity, even when integrity destroys your personal life. I stood one night in my apartment, looking at the locked case holding that medal, and finally accepted the truth. I would do it all again. Every fractured relationship. Every lonely holiday. Every moment of being misunderstood and blamed. Because somewhere out there, people were alive who never knew how close they came to dying. They went home to their families. Mine fell apart. That was the trade. Some people measure success in love and belonging. Others in money or recognition. I measured mine in lives that continued uninterrupted. National security isn't heroic. It's quiet. It's thankless. And sometimes, it demands everything you have. Even your family. Even your future. Standing there in the silence, I understood something most people never will: doing the right thing doesn't always make you whole. Sometimes, it just makes you necessary. And for me, that had to be enough.